Under the leadership of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and his visionary leadership in the region, it actually entitled Egypt with the continuous effort to cement its role being a key player for peace in the whole region, not only in the African continent. So welcome everyone and hello to a new edition of our today's daily debate. It's a special edition. Tonight we're going to discuss Egypt's strategic role, a catalyst for the region's development, stability and unity. But let's first, ladies and gentlemen, start with our top story for tonight, as Egypt and Jordan unite for regional stability and Palestinian support. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi hosted King Abdullah II of Jordan today for a high-level meeting attended by delegation from both nations. Discussions centered on pressing regional developments, particularly in Palestine, with a shared emphasis on coordinated actions and humanitarian relief. According to the official spokesperson for the Egyptian presidency, the leaders call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, stressing the importance of unstretched delivery of humanitarian aid. They highlighted also the critical role of the outcomes from the recent extraordinary Arab and Islamic summit in Riyadh, reaffirming their commitments to collective Arab action in addressing the Palestinian crisis. The two leaders expressed their commitments to ensuring the success of the upcoming humanitarian response support conference for Gaza, scheduling to take place in Cairo on December the 2nd. Both leaders emphasized the international community's responsibility to guarantee the safe delivery of aid to Gaza. They also understood and underscored the pivotal role of the United Nations Relief of Works Agency for Palestinian refugees in the Near East, the UNRWA, in providing essential services to Palestinians. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi praised Jordan's unwavering support for the Palestinian cause, while King Abdullah II commended Egypt's ongoing efforts to mediate ceasefire and facilitate humanitarian relief to Gaza. Both leaders strongly rejected any attempts to resolve the Palestinian issue through forced displacement or the right to an independent Palestinian state. They reiterated that the establishment of a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as its capital is essential for achieving the two-state solution and also ensuring long-term stability in the region. So also we had today as a top story the important and high-level visit from the Foreign Minister and Prime Minister of Qatar today, as he met with our Foreign Minister, Dr. Badr Abdelati, and also he met with our President, His Excellency Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. Let's watch this report and we'll come back to you.
In a significant diplomatic meeting, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi welcomed Qatari Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdurrahman Al Thani to Cairo. The high-level talks underscored Egypt's pivotal role in fostering regional stability and explored avenues for enhanced bilateral cooperation. The delegation included top Egyptian officials such as Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and key ministers, reflecting the strategic importance of the dialogue. The Qatari Prime Minister conveyed greetings from Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, emphasizing Qatar's commitment to deepening ties with Egypt across political, economic and investment sectors. President el-Sisi reciprocated with warm regards and highlighted the shared aspirations of both nations to strengthen bilateral relations to meet the challenges posed by regional and global crises. The discussions prominently addressed the escalating humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Both leaders stressed the urgent need for a ceasefire, unimpeded delivery of humanitarian aid and the release of hostages. President el-Sisi reiterated Egypt's dedication to supporting the Palestinian people, calling for international efforts to uphold their legitimate rights. including the establishment of an independent state in line with international resolutions. Sheikh Mohammed commended Egypt's pivotal role in facilitating humanitarian assistance through the Rafah border crossing, underlining Qatar's support for Egypt's initiatives and the upcoming Cairo-hosted ministerial conference aimed at bolstering humanitarian responses. Another focal point of the meeting was Lebanon, where both sides emphasized the importance of reinforcing state institutions, particularly the Lebanese armed forces, to maintain national sovereignty and security. They also expressed mutual aspirations to build on recent ceasefire agreements to achieve comprehensive regional stability. The dialogue further explored opportunities to expand cooperation in industrial development, transportation, and economic integration. Egyptian officials highlighted the country's ambitious development agenda and efforts to create a conducive environment for investments, resonating with Qatar's interest in deepening economic collaboration. The leaders also reflected on the broader need for Arab unity to confront shared challenges such as regional conflicts and economic uncertainties. Both sides called on the international community to assume its responsibilities in alleviating the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Egypt's consistent efforts to mediate and facilitate aid deliveries were lauded, while Qatar reaffirmed its dedication to diplomatic engagement, including its recent mediation efforts involving key global stakeholders. This strategic meeting not only reaffirmed the robust relationship between Egypt and Qatar, but also showcased Egypt's indispensable role as a regional stabilizer, mediator, and advocate for collective Arab action in addressing the region's pressing challenges.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and after we followed the previous report, we are delighted to have here our studio guest, Dr. Milad Momtaz, International Relations Expert. Dr. Milad, it's great having you with us.
Pleasure.
So, talking about the strategic cooperation and relations between Egypt and Qatar, especially in the amid all the geostrategic challenges in the whole region, and playing the role as a whole, as a main mediator, especially in the Palestinian cause in the last previous time. So how you first of all precious and evaluate the strategic relations between Qatar and Egypt?
Actually, if we go back in time, we'd find that the relation between the two countries were kind of like, we witnessed like ups and downs in the relations between the two countries. However, I think, you know, our efforts and our strategy regarding the relation between Qatar and Egypt, I think has paid off now. We've seen, I think that's very evident, that our way, our strategy, that we get everyone together, and I mean it that because we have been approaching Qatar, okay, putting in mind one thing, that we want to have peaceful relations with the country, with our brethren in Qatar. Okay. And we need all countries in the region to understand that what the true weight of what Egypt is. So, and I think, okay, things have changed the last couple of years now, and I think, you know, the two countries now have become like, they understand each other very well, and I think leadership in both countries, they understand, you know, each other very well as well. So I think doors are wide open now between the two countries. They can go ahead, and I think, you know, the two countries are very potential economically, politically as well. And we have been watching this very closely for the last, I think, now more than 400 days now in the, you know, the crisis in Gaza, and not only in Gaza, I think now it's been escalating to cover other areas in the region. So I think Qatar and Egypt, they've been working hand in hand together to bring peace to the region, despite the fact that everyone knows that the situation in Gaza is so critical. It's not that simple to approach. It's not that easy. Despite that, I think many people, they believe that it's just a mere conflict. I totally disagree with this. I strongly believe that, okay, it's deeply rooted. It's been more than 75 years now. So I think approaching this kind of issue needs, like a different approach, different understanding of the issue. And Egypt and Qatar, they have been working hand in hand to get everyone to sit at the same table and to discuss the whole situation, regardless of the fact that the two parties, whether we talk about Hamas in that context or the occupying forces, Israel on the other hand, they have so many differences, and they have, the understanding, I believe it's very different between the two parties. However, and that's why I, believe that, approaching this kind of challenge is, it's very difficult to get, Hamas and Israel to sit at the same table. I believe it's very, very challenging. So I believe, my personal approach to this, that I know till now we haven't reached that level that we'd say that, ceasefire has been actually, done between Hamas and occupying forces.
Not, but do you still believe, Dr. Momtaz, that it's still the door open in spite of many rounds of negotiations and mediation to get the both parties of war into the negotiating table, and still the door really open, or an open window for a peace, especially after achieving the ceasefire agreement in Lebanon today morning?
Exactly.
They believe that maybe it will pave the way for
sure.
ceasefire in Gaza?
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say that, peace in the region, it's hard to get there, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Nothing is impossible if we consider the fact that exactly, especially if we keep in mind that diplomacy opens every door, whatever that door, how strong it is, whatever we can open Israel. It. Yes. Yeah, because we did that ourselves as Egyptians,
we did it
and
before.
it was very difficult.
And
1970s, exactly. It wasn't as simple back in 1970s by all measures. I think it was very, very challenging back then, but we did it as Egypt, and I think we can do it once again. And diplomacy actually has to be there, always has to be there, because the other alternative, I think, is very difficult. War is our very last resort by all means. We don't want to go to war. Egypt as a country is a peaceful nation, and I think that's a kind of, middle ground between us and Qatar. We've been seeking this. We need peace in the region, and as you've said, regarding the ceasefire that has been reached between Lebanon and Israel, I think that, as you said as well, it paves the way for this. So we strongly believe in peace, despite the fact that after I heard the Prime Minister, the Israeli Prime Minister yesterday, and his three goals or his three reasons why he made the ceasefire, I'm not pessimistic. I want to be always optimistic about politics, but we have learned dealing with other that we have to be very cautious, and we have to be very careful. This ceasefire is kind of bumpy, ups and downs, like hanging in the air as well. Once again, I want to be optimistic, and we have to be optimistic regarding this, and we need to build on the ceasefire. However, we need to be very much watchful and very much careful about the ceasefire that has been reached between the two nations.
Yes. Sir, with such aspirations and such great hope, how we can just build on this and guarantee the success of the next hosted Cairo Summit for Humanitarian Aid for Gaza, which will be held in Egypt, in Cairo, on the 2nd of December, next December?
Actually, this issue is, a very critical one.
It is.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza, it's a very sad story. And, we've been watching this, and, with aggravation, it's so, so sad.
But it's our grave concern as Egypt also and Jordan, the flow of the humanitarian aid. I mean, this is number one, to mitigate the suffer of the Palestinian people.
Exactly. You know, for more than 400 years, 400 days now, okay, our brethren in Gaza and in Rafah as well, they've been suffering from ongoing agony, non-stop on a daily basis. You know, and we talk about, okay, some basic things, for example, like medical supplies, like, you know, water. We talk about fresh water, which is not available in so many areas in Gaza. So I think, you know, situation
now is like simply unlivable.
Exactly, exactly. Totally agree with you. You know, so and I think, you know, it is for sure, and that's so sad when we see, you know, the video footages that we see on a daily basis. When you see pictures, you know, it's so sad, and I think the entire world actually, you know, so many countries of the world, okay, apart from United States of America and Israel, of course. Okay, they've been talking about this and they've been seeking to stop this, I think, you know, sooner. So the issue, Egypt has been trying since day one, and we still recall this since day one. Egypt has been trying, you know, to push this issue to the front, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. We actually saw, and we're still actually seeing this, you know, the trucks, you know, loaded with stuff, different stuff. But the issue now, for example, the crossings, and the issue of Rafah crossings and Philadelphia, the corridor of Philadelphia, which is very critical. Egypt and Qatar and Jordan, and I think most, if not all, the countries in the region, they've been wanting to help out our brother in Gaza and Rafah. The issue to me is that the stubbornness of the occupying forces, okay, is Israel, you know, they have been, you know, putting every possible obstacle on the way, so as not to provide, you know, civilians with highly needed, you know, basic stuff. We talk about, okay, food, we talk about, okay, water, as I said earlier, sanitation, you know, everything. It's not livable, as you said. So, but they've been trying to block this. And, you know, I think we've been following very sad news coming from Gaza that there are some thugs, okay, that, you know, or organized crime, I would say, okay, in Gaza, blocking or stealing, you know, humanitarian aid being, you know, allowed. So despite the fact that, okay, it's very limited, the humanitarian aid, but we find other obstacles in Gaza. They don't want to deliver this to our brethren and the civilians in Gaza. So it's been a very sad story. Okay, Egypt and Jordan, they have been trying, okay, to get that thing through. They've been calling on every country in the world to help out with this, you know, pressures, putting more pressures on Tel Aviv, okay, and we've been actually, you know, in contact with Washington, okay, with the United States of America, to get that through. We want actually to help out those people, and we're talking about civilians. We're not talking about, okay, other militias or militants. We're talking about, okay, that civilians there.
And defending itself, as always Israel says, how defending itself and always killing the civilians, especially the children and women. So getting back to the, in your envision, how Egypt and Qatar collectively contributing to maintain the sovereignty also of the Lebanon's state and institutions to keep the stability and sovereignty of Lebanon as well, before approaching the ceasefire?
Okay, actually, you know, Lebanon is, you know, it's another critical issue, you know. And I find Lebanon, okay, it's not about, okay, something that happened today or...
It's a bit easier case as Gaza, of course.
It's, despite the fact that some people, they believe it's easier, and I kind of agree with this, but on the other hand, you know, the issue in Lebanon is very critical too. Why? Because it's been there for years now. So, for example, the political situation in Lebanon is so hazy. It's, you know, it's foggy there. We can't figure out the situation in Lebanon. For example, electing a president, that's been one of the most important challenges in Lebanon. Okay, despite the fact that some other countries...
Long time ago.
Why? Because of the different factions, okay, different sectarian, you know, issues in Lebanon. And we actually fully understand, you know, that the situation in Lebanon, culturally speaking, and politically speaking, it's not that simple to approach. We get this as Egypt, we get this as Qatar, we get this, I think, in Jordan as well. So approaching Lebanon and approaching the situation in Lebanon needs someone who is fully acquainted with the situation in Lebanon. And we've been trying to get, the different factions to sit at the same table once again, because that's their country. And the stability of Lebanon directly impacts the security situation and the stability in the entire region. So it's a national interest to Lebanese people. However, it has to do with our national interest as well in Egypt and in Jordan and Qatar as well. So we've been actually trying to get the different factions to negotiate and to get to some sort of an agreement on the next president. And I think not only Egypt, Qatar and Jordan, and I think most nations in the world, they've been calling on Lebanese to gather together and to come to some sort of an agreement, as I said, to elect a president. By the way, electing the president or having a head of a state is something is very crucial to any country in the world, because he is in the driving seat.
Of course. So, Dr. Momtaz, please allow us to check and shed more light on the pivotal role of Egypt in the African continent and in the whole region with the next report.
Egypt occupies a pivotal role in Africa, leveraging its strategic geographical location, rich historical legacy, and robust infrastructure to drive development and foster regional cooperation. Situated at the crossroads of Africa, the Middle East and Europe, Egypt serves as a vital hub for trade, energy and diplomacy. Egypt has been instrumental in advancing regional integration through initiatives like the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA. As a founding member, Egypt promotes intra-African trade and economic synergies, positioning itself as a leader in connecting African markets with global ones. Its investments in energy, transportation and logistics amplify its role as a linchpin for infrastructure projects that link African nations. Notably, Egypt has focused on several development projects and cross-border road networks. These initiatives underscore Egypt's commitment to sustainable development and economic growth across the continent. Egypt excels in conflict resolution and peace building, leveraging its diplomatic clout to mediate regional disputes. Recent examples include Egypt's role in the Libyan peace process and its leadership in calling for ceasefire in areas afflicted with wars. Its contributions to African Union-led initiatives demonstrate Egypt's commitment to fostering stability and long-term peace in a volatile region. Egypt's focus on key sectors like renewable energy, agriculture and education further enhances its leadership. By sharing its expertise in solar and wind energy, desert farming and technical education, Egypt strengthens bilateral ties with African nations while promoting innovation and sustainability. The country's efforts to address food security and promote cultural exchange reinforce its dedication to a cohesive and prosperous African continent. Egypt maintains an active presence in African forums. These platforms allow Egypt to advocate for shared goals like economic diversification, regional solidarity, and enhanced South cooperation. Through a blend of diplomacy, development projects, and leadership in regional initiatives, Egypt not only anchors Africa's progress, but also ensures its own sustained influence as a key partner in global and regional affairs. Its unwavering focus on peace, development, and integration secures its status as a cornerstone of Africa's aspirations for growth and unity.
Welcome back, dear viewers. We still had on Daily Debate on LTV International, and we still have the pleasure of having our studio guest today, Dr. Milad Momtaz, the international relations expert. Dr. Milad, once again, welcome to our edition of tonight, and thank you for joining us once again. So, talking about the philosophy of our diplomacy, the Egyptian diplomacy and the unique position of Egypt at the crossroads of Africa, of the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. Actually, it made the depth. It gives it a depth of its role, playing a pivotal role in the whole region as a key player for peace and stability. So, talking about this and shedding more light about this, how you just can evaluate from the strategic alliance of Egypt, how does the diplomacy enhances the diplomatic and political role, of Egypt to make and to, let's say, to ensure a leverage, or to use its leverage on existing peace and stability in the whole region?
I strongly believe that Egypt has been playing that role for a long time, for decades. I think, since 1950s and 60s onwards, Egypt has been evidently, active in bringing peace to the region. And let me stress on something that I said earlier, that Egypt is a peaceful nation. We are not, and we have never been an aggressive nation throughout history, not only modern times. So, and we have a certain philosophy, and let me quote you on this. We have a certain philosophy, we have an ideology in diplomacy that with security comes development.
Yep.
So with peace comes development. With stability comes development. So that's like the launching pad.
This is what President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi always assures, actually.
Exactly, because we cannot make it.
This is the reality.
Exactly.
You can never make development or establish development or without peace.
Exactly, that's the starting point.
Yep.
So, and we've seen the opposite. We've been observing this in different areas in the region. It's so sad once again. Not only about Gaza, because Gaza is a different situation, if you don't mind. But let's say, witnessing the situation in Libya, or our brother in Sudan, what's going on, or in Syria. It's so sad. So unfortunately, let me put it this way, I think, we have different sad stories in the region. And Egypt, I think, we are kind of, fortunate, because we were unfortunately close to this.
Yeah. We are in the middle, actually. Not only in Africa, but the whole region, really.
Yeah, I'm talking about from I think 2010 to 2013, 2014, situation was so hazy in Egypt, and I think last 10 years, we've been seeing, accomplishments everywhere. Due to one thing, once again, which is stability and security, both of them, because both of them, they go hand in hand. Egypt, learned that lesson very well, and that's why this has been our philosophy for the last 10 years, and that's what we have been trying to actually to find everywhere in the region. For example, dealing with the situation in Libya, I think that is very complex, situation there with the different factions, with the different groups, with the different, different countries wanting to intervene in Libya, and they've been doing that for a while now. I think Suez since 2010, so we are approaching like 15 years now. Situation in Libya is so once again foggy, it's not clear. And we've been calling on the different factions, the different groups, once again, as I said earlier, to get everyone together so as to understand. We need them to understand that without security, Libya, I think it would be very difficult to make it. And let me draw the attention of our viewers to something which I find it very important about Libya and Sudan, but definitely a little bit that both of them are so potential economically speaking.
Yeah,
And that's
of course.
so surprising. It's pretty surprising, you know, because economically speaking, Libya is one of the most important oil producers in the continent. Sudan, with the vast area that's, you know, very fertile, and Sudan actually is very well known for this.
Yeah.
Only I'm talking about fertile land in Sudan. And despite all of this, and despite the potentiality, you know, in the two countries, and we find that that's what the political situation is.
Sudan
exactly.
in particular.
You know, Sudan, you know, on the ties with Sudan, I think we don't need to explain that much about Sudan and how important Sudan to Egypt and vice versa. You know, because it's like back to back, you know, the two countries, you know, and these are not just mere words. We mean it historically speaking. You know, Egypt and Sudan has been, you know, together for decades. And if I may, I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said for centuries as well. So talking about Sudan is not surprisingly, you know, shocking to, you know, to anyone that we need actually to see Sudan as a stable region, you know, as a stable nation. You know, and we've been watching the situation in Sudan, you know, very sadly, you know, because, you know, situation and displacement of millions of people, and, you know, the mass killing in some areas in Sudan, you know, and the economic situation in Sudan is so sad as well. And we've been trying to help out our brethren in Sudan, you know, despite the fact that the economic situation in Egypt
became
is
also a miserable
exactly,
life.
you know. So we've been trying, we've been doing our best regarding Libya and regarding Sudan, okay, cooperating with other nations, you know, getting everyone to understand that once again, security comes first.
Yeah. So out of this, when understanding the commitment of Egypt and the dedication to the mega projects of infrastructure, how it actually contributes to its goal of the sustainable development and sustainable economic development in the whole continent, as Egypt really exists in African countries by establishing mega projects, networks of roads, banking sector. We are existing over there through our Egyptian consortiums like Arab Contractors and other Egyptian companies establishing real infrastructural projects over there. How you view this and weigh this?
Sadly saying, you know, Africa, you know, that needs to be...
Needs too much.
You know, needs too much, that's first, okay, and needs to be pushed forward. We need to move ahead. You know, we've been behind for decades now, despite the fact that if we see African countries gaining their independence, that dates back to 1950s and 1960s. So it's been decades now in Africa. And we know for sure, okay, as I've been talking about Sudan and how potential Sudan is, that applies to most, if not all, African countries. Africa is one of the most potential continents in the world. I mean it. Economically speaking, if you ask any expert, any economist in the world, who is he or she actually aware of, you know, the economic potentiality of Africa, he would say or she would say instantly that, okay, I would go and invest money in Africa. However, on the other hand, and this is actually, I know it's puzzling, it's one of the most challenging as well. So on one hand, it's very potential. On the other hand, it's very challenging. Why is it challenging? As you said, okay, it's because of the infrastructure. Okay, we've been actually, or Africa in general is very much behind in terms of infrastructure, unfortunately. For example, Egypt now, okay, is number 18 in the world in the quality of roads.
Yeah.
We have made a great progress the last 10 years. By the way, we were 118. So it's 100 places. So, and we need to see this in Africa, all over the continent. Yeah. Because people who have been asking about what is so important about roads and bridges in Egypt, we need to tell them straightforwardly that we won't be able to have development without roads, without infrastructure.
We'll never be able to attract investments.
Exactly. Who would come to Egypt?
Such infrastructure.
Foreign investors will not come to a country, okay, and I'm talking about my country here in Egypt, unless they find strong, okay, coherent, infrastructure. And infrastructure, by the way, that, okay, requires billions of dollars. It's not that easy. It's not that simple. Okay, for example, building efficient railways like the express railway that we are building, okay, from the Red Sea, and it would reach Dab'a, okay, we're talking about the Mediterranean Sea. It's a very, in my mind, a very ambitious project. And we've been trying to get Africa on the same track, on the same page with Egypt. Different African countries, they need to understand that they need to invest a lot of money in infrastructure. And by the way, one aspect I find it very crucial regarding infrastructure is energy. Egypt spent billions of dollars to actually produce electricity. Okay, and I still recall this, like I think 8 or 9 years ago, as we actually, brought one of the most advanced, companies in Germany to build, electricity. I'm talking about, okay, energy plants in Egypt, and I think that has been very successful. Okay, I know it's not that simple.
Being
once again,
a regional hub also for energy is really
very good. Okay,
Egypt,
we've been actually trying to build one of the most ambitious projects with Saudi Arabia.
Providing Europe with the energy and gas.
Exactly, and we've been actually the consortium or the alliance with Cyprus as well, which has, I think, has proved to be very successful. Okay, and has been, I think, an example here, okay, as well. So energy actually is one of the most crucial actually points or areas that Africa needs to work on. Sadly enough, I think everyone, maybe they have heard about this, but so many African countries, they don't have electricity, or they have electricity, they have it for a couple of hours on a daily basis. Only, a couple of hours on a daily basis. So I think most African countries, they deserve, better infrastructure. And I think Egypt, is very much potential and very much ready to play an active role in this.
Yeah. Egypt has been also instrumental for advancing the economical integration within the continent as well, through many and different initiatives like the free trade zone and the free, the African continental free trade area. So how you find such initiatives, and how it really could bring us the continent, as a big continent like African virgin, big continent like Africa, to be equal like the EU, something like it.
Okay, I really like the example that you gave of the European Union, because the European Union is...
Despite that the EU now is actually witnessing a sort
ups
of
and downs.
Yeah, sort of decline,
we have seen the Brexit as well.
Especially in France, Germany, and Britain.
And
so,
I totally agree with you. However, economically speaking, it's one of the strongest, groups or alliances in the world. Africa, I think we've been trying to do this since 1950, surprisingly, but I don't think it has been...
big,
same way. The alliance, we've been thinking of this since 1940s. Can you imagine?
20 years ago, I think, or even longer than this.
1940s. Since 1940s, it was a simple idea. Since the establishment of the Arab League, that was a very important idea on our minds, the leaders' minds, okay, since 1940s. Okay, however, we haven't been taking practical steps, and that's my issue. That's my most important worry, that, we've been talking about this, but we need an action plan. We need, to take some practical steps, not only to keep it, with all due respect to everyone, that, I know diplomacy is important, talks are very crucial, but we need actions. Words, I think we have had enough with words, Okay, most African people, they're being calling on their leaders
We need to
and
think
cabinets.
pragmatically in our interest,
Exactly.
in the interests of our nations together, to be stronger together, how to be united, together stronger. This is like the motto of the EU, exactly.
Right?
Together,
Okay.
united,
Totally
together,
agree with
stronger,
you.
stability.
Yes, exactly.
and
EU
prosperity.
once again.
Yes.
Okay, let me actually, I think most viewers know about this in history. 1940s and the war that ended in 1945, no one would have imagined that we'd see some strong alliance like the EU. No one would have imagined this. But look at the EU nowadays, economically speaking. Okay, it's and there's still potential in EU. They're still working on their economy. They have never said that we have had enough with development. And this is something I need to be, to us, as to be jealous of this in Africa. Okay, that we need actually to work in this because the doors are very much open. And I think, yes, we are facing immense challenges in Africa. Totally agree with this. We get this. However, okay, at the same time, we have to work on our development. And Egypt, as you said, I think, needs to play, and we've been actually trying to do this for the last 10 years. We've been trying to be like, the driving force in the continent to get everyone through the different initiatives to understand that, okay, unity and stability, they go hand in hand.
Yeah, also, of course, our collaboration with the African Union through combating terrorism and extremism as well, after our great story of success combating terrorism. And it has become now as history, something that we try never to remember again. So it's a real long story to talk about, of course, our pivotal strategic role in the, not only in the African continent, but in the whole region and in the whole world. So Dr. Milad Momtaz, International Relations Expert, many thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And by this, dear viewers, we come to the end of our today's edition of Daily Debate. Many thanks for watching. We hope we did enjoy it. Good night.